So this is Samsung Z Fold 4, and I've been using it, kind of on and off for the past couple of months since it came out pretty much. And this is not an everyday phone. This is not a phone that the mass market show will go out and buy, even with the Z Fold 5 coming out, or even at a lower price for this phone, because this phone is still like around $1,000 or so, maybe just under $1,000 now. But even then, the form factor may not be the best for everyone. So first, the build and design. The phone itself is really well built in my opinion. You have corner glass Victus Plus on the back, an aluminum frame on the hinge on the sides. It's holding up pretty well. Now granted, I do use a case like pretty much 98% of the time. There's only small portions of the day where I may take the case off, but most of the time I keep the case on. And one thing to keep in mind with the case is that not every case will protect the hinge on the back, and I've had an experience in the past with a Z Fold 3 where I accidentally dropped my phone and that hinge got scuffed. So something to keep in mind on those cases, and they also can be extra bulky and cost quite a penny if you get a more expensive case. I highly recommend getting either some kind of case or some kind of protection plan in case something were to happen with the Z Fold 4. Because while the materials on the outside are strong and pretty high standard for a flagship phone, the inner display is where you may have the most questions and doubts about, because I personally do have my doubts. I have seen that my Fold 4 here has been either making some creaky-ish, like squeakish noise, like something's peeling off. And I think it's just a screen protector that's peeling off in the middle, and you can also see like a rainbowish color when you're on a white background or something like that. You can definitely see something is going on there. It doesn't also open up completely flat. You have to like just give it a little bit of a push and a thug and a hug just to make it open up the whole way. But for the most part though, the hinge is still holding up pretty strong. It just stays at any position that you angle it at, so that's good as well. But as far as the displays themselves, I believe it is a 6.2 inch on the outer and then a 7.6 inch on the inner, and it of course is like a flex plasticky feeling looking display on the inside, and then you have like a regular glass display on the outside. The outside display or the inner display, both of them are very sharp, very good, high quality. They're both very good when it comes to the quality of the display, smooth as well with the 120 hertz. But the main thing is going to be your experience of the form factor. So on the outside, I do find the narrowish display to be quite a bit tough to get used to, only because of typing. It's tough to type on this. The main reason I use the outer display is to, I don't know, pick a video for YouTube and then open up my phone, pick a Spotify song, maybe change something on my hue lighting or something like that. Small, quick actions that wouldn't require me to be doing a lot of like movement with my fingers. If I'm scrolling to like maybe watching shorts and something like that, that's fine as well. But one thing to keep in mind too there is that sometimes there's some stuff that gets cut off on these sides because of the narrow display. On the inner display, it works just fine with most things as well. Some apps are just blown out to fit on this display, and it's just a bigger version of their regular mobile version, so it may not work the best or may not look the best, but it's still functional. It still works for the most part. Samsung does force most apps to go into full screen mode, or you can change the aspect ratio to a 16:9 if you really want to get the normal size app looking thing. So you do have those options if you wanted to. Even for like videos and stuff like that, the aspect ratio for this display size isn't the best either, because you're gonna get black bars regardless of whether you're watching a wider video or a more 16:9 video. You either get black bars on the top or the bottom, or if you're on the outer display, it'll either get on the side or something like that. The only aspect ratio I think that works like video wise for either of these displays is a wider one. That'll work just fine on the outer display. You actually get a perfect screen to body ratio for when it comes to that video. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it works pretty well with that. But because otherwise you get black bars on the inside. So you can zoom in to get a more immersive look and feel, but in my opinion, you're losing so much content on the edges, on the sides when you pinch the zoom. So I personally don't do so. You can split screen and do that kind of stuff, because this display, the inner display, is perfect for split screen. You can pretty much use two full apps, watch a full video like from corner to corner, pretty much no bezel or no black bars, and then also use another app at the bottom if it's like a horizontal app. You can experiment with the kind of apps that work great with split screen mode, and you can go crazy. Like if you're a multitasking beast, you're gonna love this kind of phone, because this inner display works really well with that. I've used stuff like playing, I don't know, like Rocket League at the bottom and then watching a full video at the top. Same thing with like Minecraft. Any horizontal video or horizontal game that runs horizontally will work really well with watching a video at the same time. But as far as that performance though, it pretty much works pretty good for the most part. I have seen a couple hiccups. The phone has actually shut down on me a couple of times as well, like just out of nowhere, it just restarted. I don't know if it's because I was pushing it too much or what was going on, or maybe I hit a virus or something. I don't know. It's still overall a very powerful device. I think it's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen +1 or 1 Plus or +1. I'm not sure. It's the second generation of the 8 Gen 1, the more efficient version, because the 8 Gen 1 itself was a hot chip, and this still runs somewhat warm sometimes. You can get it to get hot if you're really pushing it, but otherwise it doesn't really get too hot. I think it also has 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM, not 5X, the newest version, and then UFS 3.1 storage, I believe. I think the base is 256 up to a terabyte if you wanted that. Overall performance is really good, and the experience is somewhat okay. The software, like I said, it is One UI, and I already talked about the multitasking stuff. You can split screen, you can do a bunch of pop-ups, you can use picture-in-picture, and that all works really well. You can use the edge bar to help you multitask. You can use the taskbar at the bottom to multitask as well. Drag and drop your apps as you please, and it's a fun experience. But the rest of the software, it's pretty normal to what you would get on other Samsung devices, so like your S23s or your A51s and whatnot of the worlds. You will get the similar experience here with the Google integration, the Samsung integration, all that kind of stuff will all work pretty much on here. So you have Samsung Dex, you have Secured Folder, you have Quick Share, Nearby Share, you have the ability to also use Bixby text and call. You can also auto switch between your devices if you have Galaxy Buds. You can also use Find My with Samsung with SmartThings, or also Google's Find My if you lose your device. So all that other stuff you already get here. But the main thing with the phone itself is going to be the experience. How will you adjust to that? Because for me, I just can't use it as a day-to-day phone. Like I said, the typing is not that great. There's certain things like watching videos where you just want to watch a video and you can get over the fact that you have black bars, but sometimes I just feel like it's just easier to end up just using a regular size phone, because most apps are developed for that regular size display. So there's no need to worry about, will it work okay on this screen size? Will it function funny? There's no need to worry about that on a regular size phone, but on here, it can be questionable sometimes. Some other things we can talk about here is going to be that, one, you do have USB-C at the bottom, which you'll use for 25 watts of fast charging, and it's okay when it comes to speeds. It takes about roughly an hour and like 15 or so minutes to fully charge, and it lasts for about maybe, I would say anywhere from 8 or 10 hours to about 14 or 16 at most. I don't get the best battery life out of this phone. I get only maybe 3 to 5 or so hours of screen on time. Maybe you can get more, but it all depends on what you do on your day-to-day. It is a 4,400 milliamp hour battery, so it's relatively big, but because you may be using the inner display a lot, it does drain the battery faster. And if you're like playing a lot of games, multitasking a lot, which is what I would definitely recommend on this phone to do, like take advantage of the big display and do that kind of stuff. So you may end up, killing this phone off pretty quick during the day. So that's another reason why I wouldn't use it for a day-to-day phone. I wouldn't trust it to last me all day. You also have reverse wireless charging and wireless charging as well if you needed that. You have decent biometrics as well, so you have your physical fingerprint sensor, which I really like compared to all under display fingerprint sensors. This just knocks every fingerprint sensor out of the water. It's fast, it's reliable. It's sometimes too good that you can turn on a setting that you can just have it automatically turn the phone on with you just laying your finger on it, and it automatically turns the phone on. It can get annoying because sometimes you just actually don't mean to touch it and it just, you accidentally turn the phone on, but it's really fast. It's so reliable that it sometimes can be too annoying. But of course, that's because if you have that feature on. You can also use that gesture pad or the fingerprint sensor as a gesture pad. You swipe down and it brings down the notifications, which is pretty cool. Then you also have the options for facial recognition. So if you want to use facial recognition, you can. It works about 85 or 90% of the time. There's sometimes where if you're in a low light environment, or if you're at a weird angle or your phone's like way too far away from you, sometimes there's times where it won't recognize you. And it both works on the inner display and also on the outer display. One thing I forgot to mention with the inner display is that you do have an under display camera. So that, like I said, works for facial recognition, but for camera wise, you can use it. You can use your phone to prop it up and get this like flex mode and like see yourself, take a video or get in a what's it called, a video call if you want to do that. But I personally never have done that. I've never even used that camera to take actual photos and videos. I only really use it for for facial recognition, and you don't really notice it either. So if you're looking at the display, yes, if you're looking for it, you can see it, but most of the time it just disappears. It just blends in to the display, which is pretty cool. And I forgot to touch on this with the crease as well. Yes, you can see the crease at angles. Yes, you can see it if you're looking for it, and you can feel it when you're swiping around. Personally, that part doesn't bother me that much. You definitely get used to it over time. And one thing I forgot to mention as well is the S Pen compatibility on the inner display. You can use a special Z Fold S Pen, which allows you to take notes on the inner display, which is pretty cool if you're someone who loves taking notes, but just keep in mind you do have to carry it externally. You can't put it inside the phone. You can get a case like this Samsung standing case that allows you to get a module. Pretend this is an S Pen. You just slip it in here, and then you can carry an S Pen with you at all times. Now it does give it that S Pen out here, so if you put your phone down, it does like rock a little bit, and it's kind of weird, but you still have the ability to use it. But like I said, it is a Z Fold Edition S Pen, so you can't use your regular tablet S Pens or phone S Pen on this inner display because it may damage it. And also, there's no S Pen compatibility on the outside. I do wish you had the ability to use a regular S Pen, or the Z Fold S Pen could work on this, but unfortunately, it does not. Some other small things I want to talk about is the speakers are pretty good on here. They sound really well. They're well-rounded. I think they sound loud enough. And so for me, for listening to music or for watching content, it's perfectly fine. I have no issues with that. And the haptics themselves are also not that bad. They're, crisp enough. But I personally have to keep them somewhere around mid to low or something like that, just so that they're not too aggressive. Because if you put them up pretty aggressively, similar to the S23 Ultra, they don't feel the best. They feel kind of cheap. So that's why I like keeping them somewhere in the middle. So you do have, I think, 5 different cameras. So you have your outer display camera, the cutout, and then you also have your under display camera on the inside, and then lastly your 3 cameras on the back. So starting with the, I guess, outer display camera, it's for selfies, and it looks pretty okay. It's a 12 megapixel, I believe, so it's not the best looking, but it's also not terrible. So it gets a pretty decent shot in pretty natural looking environments. Low light, it may be struggling a bit, but besides that, I think it's overall pretty decent and it gets the job done. The inner display, I already talked about how I never would use it, and it's I don't even know what the quality's like. I'm pretty sure it's pretty fuzzy like and pretty noisy like. For video, you can only do 1080p at most. And even then, I don't think it looks that great. So I wouldn't use it unless it's just for a video call. And then on the back, you do have your ultra wide, your wide, and your telephoto. And like I said, pretty mediocre. I wouldn't expect anything crazy, but I'm pretty well satisfied with the cameras on here. I think ultra wide does pretty well. The wide and the telephoto, there is a bit of a shift in colors if you're looking for it. But besides that, I think the colors look pretty vibrant and punchy like a Samsung camera typically is. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the cameras because I don't really use them too often. Low light, it does okay as well, but it's not the best. At the same time, it can do 8K in video. I think it's 8K 24, but I personally don't use that at all. I use just 4K if I do record video, and 4K 30 works just fine on all of them. And it looks pretty well stabilized and pretty good. And one cool thing too is that not only can you prop it up to use the inner display camera, you can also prop it up to use the outer display camera. So if you want to prop it up and film yourself and use it as its own little tripod, you can easily do so, which might be pretty cool for a creator or something like that. But for me, I don't do it, but you can. And you can also use these back cameras to film yourself. So you can use the outer display as a cover screen or just a screen to see yourself and then film yourself with the back cameras or take photos of yourself with the back cameras. And it ends up looking a lot better than the actual outer display or front facing camera, whatever you want to call it. It ends up looking a lot sharper, much better in the quality and colors as well. So I personally would say you could use them. And for social media use, it's not terrible. It's pretty equivalent to the quality you're getting from the camera up. Of course, you will be seeing a little bit of compression and stuff like that. But for photos, it doesn't look too bad. You can use the ultra wide, your wide, and your telephoto. So you can actually take advantage of your lenses from the phone itself to actually use it on social media, or for at least for Snapchat. For video wise, again, you can use all 3 lenses, ultra wide, wide, and telephoto, which is pretty cool. But one thing to keep in mind though is that in the past, sometimes with Snapchat, they would actually use the display size of the aspect ratio of the display to send that kind of size snap. So if you're using the phone closed, sometimes your snaps will look narrow like the display is on the Z Fold 4, so it would just look weird. It wouldn't look natural or normal looking, but I think they've recently updated and fixed it so that everyone has that 16:9 aspect ratio. but I'm not sure what people are seeing when I send snaps. So that's one thing to keep in mind too. It may not be the best optimized when it comes to social media apps for the camera and just in general use as well. So while I want the Z Fold 4 and foldable phones in general to succeed, it's not a phone that I would personally recommend to the average user at this moment. It's not a phone that everyone would enjoy using every day. They'll find some annoyances with it, whether it be durability questions, whether it be software related stuff. There's just some questions out there and some doubts that I personally understand and I agree with. But I also agree and understand that this phone or this form factor may be potentially the future, and I want it to succeed. So I love the Z Fold 4, but it's just not a phone that I would personally use as my day-to-day phone, which is why I wouldn't recommend it to the average user. For someone who wants something fun, exciting, and new, and you have money to burn, I would definitely potentially recommend it, especially if you're a multitasking beast. But besides that, that's my stance on the Z Fold 4 so far, and this like 1 year, almost 1 year later, hopefully seeing the Z Fold 5 soon. We'll have to try out the other folds too, but otherwise, that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.